For 8 years, I was the reliable son, the one who paid all the bills when others wouldn't even pick up the phone. But this year, when my mom called me the most useless kid in front of the whole family, I did something no one expected. And after that, our family dinners were never the same again. My name's Bon, I'm 32, and for most of my life, I thought being the responsible one was something to be proud of. The middle child, steady, reliable, quiet. The one who didn't break things or make scenes. The one who understood. I was my mom's safety net long before I was old enough to understand what that meant. It started after my dad walked out when I was 15. He left a note on the counter that just said, "Don't try to call. It's better this way." No warning, no goodbye. My mom, Sandra, completely fell apart. I remember walking into her room that night, the wine bottle tipped over on the carpet, the TV flashing blue light across her face. She looked at me like I was the ghost of the man who left her. "You're just like him," she slurred. That was the first time she said it. It wouldn't be the last. When I turned 16, I got a part-time job stocking shelves. Every paycheck I brought home, she'd ask for a little help. Gas money, groceries, then electricity bills, then mortgage payments. By the time I hit college, it wasn't help anymore. It was expected. I didn't even think twice. I just sent it. It was my role, my identity. The middle son who fixed things. My older brother, Jackson, got to chase dreams. My younger sister, Amy, got to have them paid for. Jackson went off to college in New York, graduated with a finance degree, and never looked back. Amy got support for her acting career. Studio rent, headshots, coaches. Guess who paid for most of that? 8 years. That's how long I sent money. Rent, repairs, cars, emergencies. When I finally added it up, it came out to 187,432s. That's a house, a future, a life. Mine, apparently. The funny part? My mom treated me like a nuisance. Every time I got promoted, she'd shrug and say, "That's nice, but when are you visiting?" When I did visit, she'd nitpick my clothes, my hair, my single status. I once brought a girlfriend home. My mom spent the entire night telling her how Bond was always the quiet one, not much personality, but dependable. That's when I started feeling something I couldn't name yet. Not anger, not sadness, something quieter, meaner. A kind of hollow burn that sat in my chest every time I wired her another loan that I knew I'd never see back. I think the first real crack showed last spring. She called crying because the roof was leaking again. She said she needed $5,000 by Friday, or the whole thing would collapse. I drove up that weekend, ready to check it out myself. You know what I found? A brand new roof, the smell of fresh shingles still in the air, and parked in the driveway, a silver Lexus.
Hey guys, real quick before we keep going, don't forget to sub and drop a like if you're enjoying the story. Thank you very much. Enjoy watching.
Her new car. When I asked about it, she said, "Oh, Jackson helped with that." Later, I checked her Facebook. "Thank you to my amazing son Bond for helping make this house beautiful again." No mention of the Lexus. No mention that Jackson's help was me. That was the moment I realized something ugly. Love in our family wasn't given. It was bought. And I was the one paying the bill. And I was done paying. After the Lexus incident, something shifted in me. Subtly at first, I stopped answering her calls right away, started letting them go to voicemail just to see what it felt like. Most of them sounded the same. Small talk for 20 seconds before she eased into what she really wanted. "Bond, the dishwasher's been making a strange noise. You know how expensive repairs are." Or, "Your sister's in a rough spot right now. Her acting coach says this next workshop could really change things for her career." There was never a question. Never "can you help?" Always an expectation. Then came the call that broke whatever guilt I had left. It was July. I was wrapping up a late project in Chicago when she called, hysterical. Something about a plumbing issue and how water was flooding the kitchen. I Venmo'd her mild $200 without thinking, just to calm her down. When I called the plumber she supposedly hired to check on it, because yes, I keep receipts, he told me no one had called from that address in months. I remember sitting at my desk, staring at the city lights through the window, and feeling something cold settle in me. It wasn't disappointment. It wasn't even shock. It was the realization that I was being scammed by my own mother. I stopped sending money after that. I didn't announce it, didn't make a scene, just quietly stopped. And of course, she noticed. The first week, it was concerned texts. "Are you okay, sweetie? Haven't heard from you." By week 2, it was guilt. "You've been so distant lately. Is this because I asked for help with the bills?" By week 3, it turned nasty. "Don't forget who raised you when your father left. I could have sent you to live with him, you know." Classic Sandra. She always knew how to twist the knife. Then she did something worse. She dragged Amy into it. My sister called late one night, crying. "Mom says you're mad at us. What did we do?" I wanted to scream that I'd paid for her rent, her classes, her headshots, her damn life. But Amy wasn't the problem. She was a product of it. Mom's favorite project. I tried to explain gently. "Amy, I just need some space. I've been helping a lot, and I'm realizing maybe I shouldn't have." Her tone changed. Cold. "So now you're keeping score?" "That's so unlike you, Bond." I laughed bitterly. "Yeah, maybe it's about time I started." A week later, I got an email from Mom titled "Family Disappointment." No greeting. Just a wall of text about how money isn't everything, how I'd lost touch with my values, and how Jackson was the only child who never makes me feel like a burden. I didn't even make it to the end before deleting it. That night, I poured a drink and opened my bank records. 8 years of transfers, cash withdrawals, emergencies. I listed every dollar, every date. When I saw the total, 187 us, 432, I actually laughed. Not a happy laugh. The kind of laugh you let out when something inside you finally breaks. And maybe it sounds dramatic, but that spreadsheet became my line in the sand. Because I wasn't her son anymore. I was her investment account. And she'd just hit her withdrawal limit. After that spreadsheet night, I started noticing things I'd been blind to for years. Small details, tiny habits that suddenly made sense once I stopped viewing my mother through the lens of duty. When I called her out on the fake plumbing story, she didn't apologize. She deflected. You've always been so suspicious, Bond. That's what happens when you live alone too long. You start imagining things. That was her move. Gaslight, guilt, repeat. And I realized it worked only because I kept letting it. So I went no contact. For the first time in my adult life, I didn't text her good morning, didn't check if she needed groceries, didn't send money just in case. And the silence drove her insane. It started with voicemails, dozens of them. Bond, please call me back. You're worrying me. Are you too good for your family now? Then one that made my blood run cold. If something happens to me, you'll regret this. I won't be around forever, you know. That last one, I saved it, not because I planned to use it, but because it reminded me exactly who I was dealing with. By week 4, she escalated. She showed up at my condo unannounced. I came home from work to find her standing outside my building, arms crossed, face pinched into that familiar expression that always preceded chaos. Why are you avoiding me? She demanded before I could even greet her. I'm not avoiding you, I said, keeping my voice calm. I'm setting boundaries. Her eyes went sharp. Boundaries? What kind of son talks like that to his mother? The kind who's been paying your bills for 8 years, I said quietly. She flinched like I'd slapped her. Then, true to form, she turned on the theatrics. You ungrateful child. After everything I've done for you, sacrificing my happiness, raising you alone while your father ran off, this is how you repay me? People walking by were staring. I could feel the heat in my neck, that old reflex of embarrassment kicking in. She fed on that, always had. I think you should go, I said, her face crumpled. You sound just like him, she spat. Cold, selfish, heartless. And there it was again, the ghost of my father, resurrected whenever she needed a villain. She stormed off, muttering loud enough for the neighbors to hear, Don't worry, everyone. He'll come crawling back. He always does. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about how she said it so confidently, like she knew me better than I knew myself. And maybe she did, at least the version of me she trained. But the next morning, I called my therapist and made an emergency appointment. I needed help dismantling whatever mental trap I'd been in all these years. Dr. Williams said something that stuck with me. You've been emotionally parentified, Bond. You were raised to meet her needs instead of your own. That's not love. It's control. It was the first time anyone had named it. Control. And something about hearing that word out loud. It lit a fuse. Because control works both ways. And for the first time in my life, I was about to take mine back. Taking control started quietly. I didn't announce some grand plan or send a dramatic text. I just stopped feeding the machine. No more money, no more reassurance, no more explanations for choices that didn't need her approval. At first, it felt powerful, like finally exhaling after years of holding my breath. I went to the gym, started cooking for myself again, even booked a solo weekend trip to Denver just because I could. But peace doesn't last long when someone's addicted to control. 3 weeks after the confrontation at my condo, she found a new way in, through Amy. I came home from work one night to a string of texts from my sister. Hey, Mom says you froze her account. What's going on? She's freaking out, Bond. You need to call her. She said you screamed at her and threatened to cut her off. That last one stopped me cold. Screamed? I hadn't even raised my voice. But that was the story now, the official version, spreading through the family. By morning, Aunt Patricia had called, Uncle Robert had texted, and even Jackson, who hadn't spoken to me in months, sent a smug message. Maybe try to be less dramatic. She's our mom. The old me would have defended myself, explained everything, apologized for her behavior. The new me, I didn't bother. Then, on Sunday morning, my phone buzzed with a notification that made my stomach twist. Mom had posted a Facebook status. Some children forget who was there for them when life was hard, but a mother never forgets. Heartbroken, each our family means everything. Hundreds of likes, dozens of comments. Even Amy commented, You don't deserve this, Mom. That one hurt more than I wanted to admit. Later that day, my doorman called. Mr. Bond, your mother's here again. She says it's urgent. I told him to tell her I wasn't home. 10 minutes later, I got a picture from a neighbor, Mom sitting on the steps outside my building, sobbing, holding a grocery bag like some tragic martyr. Inside the bag? A stack of old family photos, torn in half. There was one of me at 16, handing her a birthday cake I'd saved up for. She'd written on the back in pen, My rock, my provider. and she'd slashed right through it. That broke something in me, but not in the way she expected. Instead of guilt, I felt clarity. I wasn't her provider anymore. I wasn't her emotional sponge. I wasn't her replacement husband. That night, I reopened the spreadsheet, the one with every dollar I'd ever sent her. I printed it, slid it into a folder, and put it in my bag, because for the first time in years, I wasn't running from her manipulation. I was going to face it head on. Thanksgiving was coming. She'd already invited everyone, pretending nothing was wrong. And I decided I'd go. But this time, I wouldn't be the son who stayed quiet. This time, I'd make sure everyone saw exactly what my silence had cost. I drove to Milwaukee that Thursday, with my heart hammering the whole way. The roads were dusted with early snow, and the closer I got to my mother's house, the tighter my chest felt. I hadn't been back since the Lexus incident, and I didn't know what to expect. When I pulled up, I almost didn't recognize the place. The siding was new, the porch had been redone, and there it was, the silver Lexus parked perfectly in the driveway, like a trophy. Every single improvement I'd paid for, gleaming in the gray November light. I almost turned around, right there. But I didn't drive 2 hours just to keep running. Amy opened the door before I could knock. She looked radiant, hair done, perfect makeup, a new coat. "Bond, you came," she said, hugging me like nothing was wrong. Inside, everything smelled like cinnamon and expensive candles. My mom had gone all out. The table was set with crystal wine glasses, embroidered napkins, a centerpiece that probably cost more than my monthly utilities. "Bond, darling," she said, coming from the kitchen with that fake sweet tone that meant she was performing for an audience. "You made it just in time." I smiled politely. Wouldn't miss it. Jackson arrived last, as usual. Perfect suit, perfect hair, expensive cologne. He gave me a half hug. "Hey, little bro, how's life in the Windy City?" "Busy," I said. "You?" "Insane. I just closed another deal. Tokyo investors this time. You know how it is." "Yeah, I did." He'd been using Tokyo as an excuse since we were kids. Dinner started fine. Polite small talk, laughter that felt like it belonged to strangers. Then, as the turkey hit the table, Mom steered the conversation exactly where I knew she would. "So," she said, setting down her wine glass, "Amy has an incredible opportunity coming up. A casting director personally invited her to an advanced acting workshop in LA. Amy blushed theatrically. "It's kind of a big deal, yeah?" Mom turned to me. "She just needs a little help covering the tuition. 7,000, wasn't it, dear?" I froze mid-bite. "You're asking me?" "Well," she said, smiling tightly, "your brother's money is all tied up in investments, and you've always been our steady one. Reliable. You got that stable job." Jackson didn't even look up from his phone. Something in me snapped. "I'm sorry, but no," I said, calm, even. Mom blinked like she didn't understand the word. "No? Bond. Family supports family." "I've been supporting this family for 8 years," I said quietly. "It's someone else's turn." The room went silent. Amy's fork clattered onto her plate. Mom leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "What's gotten into you? You've changed since moving to Chicago. You used to be generous." "No," I said, feeling my pulse pound in my ears. "I used to be guilted." Jackson snorted. "Don't be dramatic." That did it. I reached into my bag, pulled out the folder, and set it on the table. "You want to talk about generosity? Here's a record of every single dollar I've given this family since college." She looked at me like I'd just cursed in church. "What is that supposed to prove?" 187,432s, I said, my voice steady now. "That's how much I've helped. You called me selfish, remember? Useless. Let's see who's really been keeping this house running." Amy covered her mouth. Jackson went pale. My mom's face twisted into something between rage and panic. "You're embarrassing yourself," she hissed. "Put that away." "No," I said, standing up. "I've spent years paying for your home, your car, Amy's rent, your trips, your lies, and all I get in return is disrespect. I'm done." For a second, I thought she might lunge at me. Her hands were shaking, her voice cracking. "You ungrateful bastard. Everything I did was for this family." "Yeah," I said, "for everyone but me." I walked out, leaving the spreadsheet open on the table like a tombstone, and as I stepped outside into the cold night air, I realized something wild. I wasn't angry anymore. I was free. The drive back to Chicago that night felt like moving through a fog, quiet, heavy, unreal. I kept replaying her face in my head, the shock, the denial, that flash of rage when she realized her grip was slipping. 8 years of being her fixer, her bank, her favorite punching bag, and it all shattered in one dinner. When I got home, my phone was already lighting up. Missed calls from Amy, 2 from Jackson, a dozen from Mom. I ignored all of them. I poured a drink, sat by the window, overlooking the lake, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel the weight of obligation pressing on my chest. But freedom doesn't come without backlash. By morning, the story had already spread. My aunt texted, "Bond, what happened at dinner? Your mother is saying you humiliated her in front of everyone." Uncle Robert left a voicemail telling me to be patient with her. She's emotional. Then came the messages from Mom herself. They started calm. "You misunderstood me. I was just frustrated." Then turned bitter. "How dare you make me look like a beggar to the whole family." By Sunday night, she'd crossed into full hysteria. You've destroyed this family bond. You're just like your father. That last one made me laugh, dark, tired laughter. Because for the first time, being like my father didn't sound like an insult. It sounded like escape. Amy called again Monday morning, crying. Mom hasn't stopped all weekend. She's been calling everyone. She even drove to Aunt Patricia's and said you screamed at her, that you threatened to take the house away. What? I said, stunned. Amy, I didn't yell once. I just told the truth. I know, she said quietly. I was there. But you know, Mom, she needs a version where she's the victim. That week, things got messy. Mom started calling my office. At first, she just left voicemails, emotional rants that my assistant tried to politely filter. But then she showed up at my actual workplace. It was a Wednesday afternoon when security buzzed my desk. There's a woman here saying she's your mother. She's very upset. I came down to the lobby, and there she was, red-eyed, shaking, clutching a manila envelope, like it contained her last breath. You left me no choice, she said loudly, drawing stairs from the reception area. You've ruined my reputation with your lies. Mom, this isn't the place. Oh, so now you're embarrassed of me too? Her voice broke into a shriek. All that money you claim to have given? Lies. You just want people to pity you. I felt heat rising in my face. Every coworker within earshot was pretending not to watch. We're not doing this here, I said quietly. But she wasn't finished. She tore open the envelope and started pulling out printed screenshots, photos from Facebook, old messages between us, even copies of checks I'd sent her, as if she was building some deranged counter case. See, she cried, holding them up. He's exaggerating everything. He's twisting it. Security finally stepped in. They escorted her out while she kept yelling my name. I just stood there frozen, humiliated, every nerve burning. Later, HR called me in. They were kind but cautious. Is everything all right at home? All right, sure. My mother had just turned my life into a public circus. That night, I sat on my couch surrounded by silence and broken pride. But beneath the embarrassment, something new began to take root, a kind of icy resolve. She wanted a scene? Fine, but she'd underestimated me. Because if she wanted everyone to see her version of the truth, I was about to show them mine. One that couldn't be twisted, one she couldn't scream her way out of. And I already knew exactly how I'd do it. I spent the next few days half numb, half seething. The embarrassment from that office incident sat in my chest like a bruise that kept throbbing. My coworkers were kind enough not to mention it, but I caught the sidelong glances, the soft sympathy in their tone. It made me want to disappear. That night, I called Thomas, my best friend, since college, the one person who knew the whole story from the start. He listened quietly as I told him everything. When I finished, he said, "She's not going to stop until she's the victim in everyone's version of this story." I know, I said. She's already halfway there. Then give her what she asked for, he said. The truth, all of it. But on your terms. That's when the idea started forming. A slow, deliberate kind of revenge, not cruel, not loud, but honest. The kind that doesn't destroy, just exposes. I spent that weekend gathering receipts, bank transfers, emails, Venmo notes, old text messages with, "Thanks, you're a lifesaver," or "Just this once, I promise." Every scrap of proof that her grateful single mother act was built on my silence. Then I wrote a letter. Not to her, but to the family. A calm, factual account of the past 8 years. I attached copies of the statements and the spreadsheet and one photo. The torn picture she'd left on my doorstep, the one that used to say, "My rock," my provider. I sent it to everyone. Aunts, uncles, cousins, Jackson, Amy. I didn't add commentary, didn't insult her. Just wrote, "Since Mom has chosen to discuss our private matters with the extended family, I want you all to have the full picture. I'm not asking for sides, just understanding." Then I turned off my phone and went for a run through the freezing Chicago night, every exhale cutting my lungs like glass, but feeling cleaner than anything I'd felt in years. The fallout came fast. By the next morning, my inbox was full. Most messages were quiet support. "We had no idea. You didn't deserve that. You did what you had to." Even Uncle Robert called. "You handled it better than I ever could have," he said. But the one that stopped me cold came from Amy. I read everything. I didn't know it was that much. "I'm sorry, Bond. I swear I'll start paying you back." That, more than any revenge, was the beginning of something real. Accountability. Jackson's response was predictable. Defensive, dismissive, laced with corporate coldness. "You made Mom look unstable. That's low. Unstable. That was rich." Mom didn't respond for 2 full days. Then, on the 3rd morning, I woke to 30 missed calls. When I finally picked up, her voice was ice. "Congratulations," she said. "You've destroyed what's left of this family." "No, Mom," I said softly. "I just stopped pretending." She hung up. I half expected her to go nuclear again, to show up, to post more online, to scream louder. But instead there was silence. Deafening, unfamiliar silence. And in that silence, something in me healed. Because the truth was out now. The web she'd spun for years, me the ungrateful son, her the saintly martyr, had been cut clean through. And no amount of screaming could patch it back together. The months after the letter passed like cold weather thawing, slow, obvious if you looked close, but easy to miss if you only glanced. The immediate heat of the confrontation faded, then the heat of smear campaigns and pity posts. And finally, the quiet work of repair began. Not the kind that fixes everything, but the kind you do when you mean to keep what's left. Jackson surprised me first. He called a few weeks after the family packet went out, voice awkward, in that corporate way he uses when he's trying to be sincere. Look, Bond, Mom's been hard to deal with. I'm going to start putting something toward the house each month. He didn't say, I'm sorry. He never said the words most people expect. But when money stopped being a private ledger and became a shared responsibility, it felt like him stepping toward the table for the first time in a long time. Practical, lame, but real. Amy was quieter. She texted me a shaky, I read it, I'm sorry, and then actually did something. She took a second barista job, moved into a cheaper apartment with roommates, and for the first time in years she called with news about auditions rather than asks for funds. She sounded smaller and steadier, like someone who'd learned to carry herself without a backup generator. That meant more to me than any check. Mom, Sandra, she did what she does best. She tried the dramatic route first, a call at my office, a post to cousins, an appearance at my building. I let most of it run off me like rain. But people get tired of performances, even the ones who write the script. After a while, the theatrics lost their audience. A few months later, she drove to Chicago for a dentist appointment and asked to meet. Her hands trembled when she sat down across from me in that bland cafe I picked because it felt neutral. She spoke slowly, and the pauses were the apologies. I looked at the accounts. I didn't know. I never added it up. I was ashamed. Her sentence crumpled into a smaller truth than the one she'd always offered. She had needed me, and then she had needed to be admired for needing me. It was messy. It wasn't absolution. But she said, I'm sorry, Bond. I shouldn't have called you useless. I didn't melt. I didn't hand her my wallet back with a smile. I told her what I needed. Respect when she asked, truth when she lied, and no more public guilt performances. No more automatic withdrawals. I'll help in emergencies, I said. Medical, real repairs, not upgrades or lifestyle. She listened. She nodded. She agreed awkwardly, and then asked if I'd consider structured support, now that Jackson was chipping in. I said no to regular payments, but yes to a plan. If Mom needed money for major repairs, we'd discuss it as a family, and Jackson would match. It was boring. It was adult. It was the opposite of the way she used to do things, and I liked it. I bought my condo 6 months after that lunch. I still kept the torn photo, my 16th birthday cake, her slashed pen line through the Igi, my rock, but it lived in a drawer now, not on the mantel. Instead of framing it as a weapon, I kept it as a reminder that I could be generous without being used. I took a week off in the spring and went to Portugal, solo, because the idea of waking up on no one's schedule felt like a quiet revolution. I came back with a sunburn and a head full of maps. Eliza came like a small, precise kindness at the end of the year, an art gallery assistant who liked coffee at odd hours and texted me playlists she swore would help me sleep. She didn't fix anything. She just made the soundtrack of my days feel less procedural. We moved slowly. There was never any pretense. A few nights before my first small housewarming, just cousins, Jackson, Amy, Mom. Sandra actually showed up with a homemade pie and 0 asks. She stayed late. She held her tongue when the kids asked for help with something, and offered instead a story about Dad's terrible fishing technique. At one point, she stood and raised her wine glass. To Bond, she said, and there it was. The acknowledgement I'd wanted, like a person starved for water wants a drink. For speaking up. No grand speech, no tears, just a small public recognition. Was everything fixed? No. There were still old grooves, old manipulations, small attempts to guilt that I shut down with the calm I'd learned in therapy. Dr. Williams taught me that boundaries are boring and heroic in equal measure. Saying no is ordinary until it becomes a habit. We practiced them until they stopped feeling like rules and started feeling like the way I wanted to live. The sweetest part of the revenge, if you could call it that, wasn't public humiliation or poetic payback. It was quiet. My weekends no longer belonged to unpaid obligations. My savings account had numbers that once would have been unthinkable. And at 32, I started building a life that didn't require me to prove my worth by settling everyone else's bills. Once, the idea of walking away felt like desertion. Now it felt like the only honest way forward. Family didn't vanish. They reassembled in different shapes. Mom still called sometimes with old reflexes. I reminded her of the new rules, and she adapted, stutter by stutter. Amy came over without needing to borrow money. Jackson sent a text, awkward, corporate, but a bridge. Aunt Patricia dropped over cookies and made a joke at Mom's expense that actually landed. On the balcony, the night after everyone left, I stood looking over Lake Michigan, a glass of cheap wine warming my hands. The city was a soft hum below, lights, traffic, 1,000 private lives. I felt something I hadn't known was possible. Not triumph exactly, but relief. The ledger was balanced in a new way. I hadn't won a war. I'd reclaim my life.